Hey guys, it's Myzeron, and in today's video, I wanted to discuss the future of Deepwoken and a few of the main problems that need to be addressed in order for the game to continue to grow going into the future and to the coming years. So with that little intro out the way, let's get right into it. Deepwoken over the last 3 years has been a massive success in terms of paid access games on Roblox. With hundreds of thousands of people playing the game, buying merch, several YouTube videos being made on the daily about the game, to say this game has been a success will be a complete understatement. Most people who played Deepwoken hailed it as the best game to ever hit the Roblox platform, which I'm inclined to agree with. It's come a long way from verse 1, which to a lot of people consider it a public beta test of sorts, and a lot of the main real game actually coming through verse 2, which removed a lot of the mechanics that actively hindered the enjoyability of the game for the sake of making it hardcore, which is a game philosophy that I truly never understood, but again, we're out of that phase now. But as of now, the game has struck a great balance of progression speed and overall enjoyment, especially for newcomers to the game. However, after the last year of delay for what was supposed to be Deepwoken's next biggest update, Conquest, we've received the other half of the major update, which was the world events. And to be honest, I think world events was a great update. However, it ended up just feeling like another weekly. This isn't to say the update was bad. It was buggy and they crunched it out in a short amount of time, so it seemed. But to say it had enough content to make us wait almost 2 years for it, yeah, I don't think anyone think it was worth the wait. Although, it's not for a lack of trying. The developers of the game have done an amazing job of consistently dropping weekly updates with no breaks in between for updates for over 3 years straight at this point. An update schedule like that is something games like YBA or ABA would kill to have. Deepwoken is just different though. The build making system is rich and diverse, with literally over 1,000 different build combinations you can probably concoct at this point, which has only grown in numbers and size, especially since over the last year. Throughout every single weekly, they added some new type of content, whether it was weapons, mantras, talents, talent trees, or even a whole new oath or attunement. This build diversity, along with the amazing combat system that you typically will not find in other Roblox games / RPG fighting games, or even games off platform as well. Even games like For Honor or Ghost of Tsushima, which inspired Deepwoken's combat, cannot really compare in terms of its dynamic combat system. Now, while I rave about the combat, that's not to say it doesn't have glaring downsides in terms of balance, which I honestly could say for a whole other video. Suffice to say, Deepwoken as a whole does a lot of things right despite its shortcomings. However, those shortcomings are ultimately what's driving a lot of people to move on from it to other games. Where I think Deepwoken should be bringing more people in, it's instead pushing people away. And I think the main problem of this is that the game is 3 years old, and with the same gameplay loop and no interesting new ways to interact with the game, what's the point of continuing to play the same game unless you have a desire to get better at the combat, which is the only real endgame deciding factor. But what do I mean exactly by this? Basically, the game doesn't have any endgame content, just straight up. At least for the first time you progress a build. The endgame is you make your first build, you try the hard stuff like Hell Mode or the new boss Emity, or try to do Way 50 Luvian, the PvE stuff, but a lot of people will quickly learn and tell you that you need to make a whole other build to be able to do the hardest challenges in the game, which is fine, that's part of the gameplay loop, which can be rewarding. However, after you overcome all the PvE challenges, the only challenge left becomes other players, which is the biggest factor in terms of how differently the game is played, from gank builds to chime builds, all that different stuff. So the most threatening thing in the game isn't even a corrupt brute lord, which is one of the hardest PvE mobs to learn against or fight against, but a silent art heavy with insanity pots or that will one-shot you while you attempt to do Hell Mode in the depths. This is fine, wiping is a part of the game, despite the questionable balance of some builds, that players can make. This distinct problem is what's holding Deepwoken back though. Outside of the balance is a lack of overall player-to-player interaction, which is something the game kind of always struggled with in the beginning. And a lot of old Rogue players, which was the game that the studio who made Deepwoken made before, they often criticize Chime as being the main reason as to why overworld interactions is down to begin with. Now, I would like to say that it would be opposite whether Chime existed or not, especially since now they've removed Skulls last year, which is one of their best updates, shout out Eclipse, but I don't think that overall was what was really driving people away from overall to begin with. I still think the rate of ganks is about the same as it was in the beginning of the game, especially because a lot of rogue players played Deepwoken early, but still, the point still stands, I don't think it would have mattered regardless because of the fundamental lack of endgame content and overworld interaction to begin with. The overworld servers are small, and the islands are really spread out, creating a lot of dead time between traveling from island to island. A lot of loot in the game that could be considered valuable relics isn't droppable, which would incentivize a lot of players to actually go after maxed out builds to get that amazing loot. And to be honest with you, the banking system being a thing, it's kind of on you if you die and drop all your relics, if and when they hopefully add and make relics droppable, which people like Agamatsu have stated directly from the devs themselves that the only reason relics aren't droppable yet is because they aren't happy with the balance of the game and there are too many cheese ways to grip people, especially in the depths, which is a whole other problem that, again, another video. So mix the unbalance of PvP with the lack of things to do in the overworld and the lack of endgame portion as a whole, this causes a lot of players to just stop playing the game after making their first build, unless they express the desire to queue 1v1 game modes like Chime and practice PvP, but there's no reason for them to continue to play the game outside of that, and especially while Chime has no other rewards outside of that in and of itself, because they want to quote unquote still make it not as rewarding as the overworld. But I mean, who cares at this point? At least let the game modes be the game modes they are, you know? So here we are, a few weeks out from the largest update going into 2025, or at least from 2024. The overall player count of world events was the size of the latest 2-minute drop blood run, which again isn't bad for what was supposed to be the largest update in almost 2 years. You'd think it would have caught more attention. However, it wasn't really hyped up or advertised as much as Layer 2 was, and it was kind of a surprise drop, all things considered. So I'm surprised a lot of people didn't know until maybe a few days later, especially since the actual update day got pushed back by 3 to 4 days. So looking at the player count and what the devs have sort of teased as to what's next for the game, I can't help but wonder, what did they plan on doing once they finally drop Conquest? Because the world event update kind of just felt like another weekly, which isn't to say the update again was bad. The bosses are fun, the new content is fun, but it wasn't enough to satiate that appetite that was there for 2 years. And from all the leaks that we've been hearing about the development of Conquest and hearing that it's going to be a MOBA like League of Legends of all things in a combat system like Deepwoken's, I don't really know if that's the best direction for the devs to sort of take the combat, especially for a whole PvP based game mode with balance being the way it is and a lot of things still not being addressed. Because if they don't address the balance of PvP and the lack of endgame content, the game will continue to sort of slowly trend downward in terms of overall player count and returning players. This game has so much potential, and it still can make the devs so much money because it does so much right compared to other games that tried to copy its flow, like Type Soul or even Jujutsu Infinite, which are not examples of what good RPG combat games on Roblox are at all. Deepwoken is the standard. I can't help but feel sad that the majority of the community is discontent when we've already received so many amazing things from this game. But that's the nature of an MMORPG like Deepwoken. And I feel like when the balance of the game finally hits a stable point, it will bring a lot of players back. I also think that the devs catch a second win of players, but making the game free to play as well. I don't really see a reason for them to not make it free to play outside of, you know, collecting revenue off of the paid access and all that stuff. But they can add game passes to certain things or even remove the cap of last wins or whatever, which sort of defeats the purpose of, you know, wiping builds. But I mean, hey man, money's money, you know what I mean? But I know a lot of people personally that have expressed interest in Deepwoken before, but because it costs money on a free-to-play platform like Roblox, it causes a lot of people to overlook what I consider personally to be the best game on the platform. All that aside though, I still have high hopes for what comes for Deepwoken in the future, but regardless, let me know what y'all think in the comments below and what sort of stuff you'd like to see from Deepwoken coming into the future. I'm going to be posting daily uploads from now on, so subscribe if you're interested in that, and I'll catch you on the next video. See ya!